13th, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask that everybody stand, raise the flag, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is roll call. Ms. Schluchto.
Board Member Allen.
Here.
Board Member Butts. Board Member Gesund.
Here.
Board Member Krug.
Here.
Board Member McAlpine.
Here.
Board Member Euler.
Here.
Board Member Ward.
Here.
Board Member Evans.
Here. Okay, and we understand that regular member Krug has contacted the Community Development Director. Oh, Butts?
Mr. Butts.
Yes, and indicated that he was out of town and unable to attend. So thank you, Ms. Ward, one of our alternates, for showing up tonight. She has full voting rights of this board, even though she's an alternate. So we have a proposed agenda. Are there any proposed changes, corrections, any questions from any members of the board or staff tonight?
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
Any discussion? Ms. Schluchto.
Gesund.
Yes.
Krug.
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes?
Evans.
Yes. Okay. And our last meeting of December 9th, we presented draft minutes. Do any board members have any changes or corrections? I do have one on page 2, about a third of the way down where it says Chair Evans noted. I don't think I was using proper grammar. He did not see the unique circumstance of the property, unique circumstances that are required rather than is required. It's just a minor grammatical change, but that's the only thing I saw.
Mr. Chair, if there are no other comments, I would make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting on December 9th, 2019.
Support.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? Ms. Schluchto.
Krug.
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Ward.
Abstain.
Allen.
Yes.
Gesund.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay, items for the agenda. We have 2 cases for tonight. The first one is for property at 2371 Stanford Road. And I see we have more members of the public than we typically have here, so I'm just going to give a brief rundown on the order of things that will occur tonight for each case. So I'll call the case and staff will give a brief summary of the case. If the board members have any questions for staff, they can ask at that time. Then I'll ask the applicant to come up and present their case to the board. The board will have an opportunity to ask any questions. At that point, I'll ask the applicant to sit down, or be seated in the audience, I'm sorry. And yes, this is not second grade. And we'll open up the public comment period. And that'll be the period for anyone here who would like to speak can address the board. And if any board members have questions for any of the people who have comments, they may ask them at that time. You only get one opportunity to speak, unless, of course, a board member has questions or would like clarification. We might ask you to come back up. At that point, we'll turn it back over to the board for any discussion, deliberation, and potential motion to proceed with the case. So with that being said, I will call the first case at 2371 Stanford. Ms. Schluchto, you have a summary for us?
Yes, I'd like to reference my January 6th, 2020 review letter. This is the case application PBA-07-19, 2371 Stanford Road. The applicant is requesting a variance for the required separation distance between single-family residential structures. The applicant is seeking a dimensional variance to construct 2 single-family residential homes with an 11-foot separation distance between the 2 dwellings. I have provided an aerial of the property in this review letter. And as you can see, there is a one single-family home that is currently on the property on that corner lot. The applicant is requesting the variance in order to demolish the existing structure and then split the lot in order to have two single-family residential dwellings. In order to satisfy the side yard setbacks, as the applicant is proposing, there would be a minimum separation distance variance to 11 feet rather than the required 15. The standards for review are spelled out in on pages 2 through 3 per section 138-606 of the zoning ordinance. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Member of the board have any questions for staff?
If I may,
Mr. Desai.
I thought last year that the council had passed an ordinance requiring a grading plan. Is that part of the requirements for a new build?
For a new build, yes. When they submit for their building permit, they will also have to submit a grading plan.
Okay.
So if this lot were to be split into two, they would have to submit two separate grading plans, one for each property.
Okay.
No more questions? Ms. Ward?
Aaron, is the house currently unoccupied or vacant?
I believe it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I see that the applicant is here. Sir, could you tell us your name, your address,
I'm
and
the applicant, Mark Adler from Mark Adler Homes. Actually, the property owner, Ms. Mathis, is here along with her daughter, Janet Anderson, so if there's any questions on that end of it as well. So as Aaron stated, I'm looking for a variance of 4 feet. It's keeping the separation between the two new build lots under the fact there would be two 40-foot wide lots that would be built on. The existing home to the south was built a little closer to the lot line, and it's not unusual in the older communities like that as things change and evolve. And then that home itself, the driveway was on the south side. So keeping that in mind as well. So when you take that in consideration from the corner lot of the new build, then you have 10 feet from the corner, which would be Eaton, and then would be the setback. And then we have the structure, the new structure, in this case it's 24-foot wide, and then be a 5-foot setback on that side, and then it would allow another 10 for that driveway, and then you get the structure in 5, and then you would have it be okay. But in this case, since the driveway to the south was flipped and the home is closer, hence the reason it causes into an issue right there. So.
any members of the board have any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. All right, at this point, I'll open up the public hearing for this matter. Is there anyone who would like to address the board for this variance request? Anyone? Sir, if you could just state your name and where you live, and if you could give us an idea if you're near the subject property, the proximity of where that is. Thank you.
John Courtney, I live on Oxford, 1129. I understand that the variance that they're looking for is supposed to be 15 feet, but they're looking to reduce that amount to 11 between both builds. First of all, I'm against it because it's too close. Now, I did look at the plans, and I'm concerned about the green space, the amount of rainwater runoff. In addition to, I think that house was constructed in 1917. So, and I also think that there were some remodels. I don't know what was done. But in the demolition of that, I'm sure that I'd like to see some asbestos testing to ensure that there's no asbestos that's going to be dispersed into the air in surrounding properties. I think they need to maintain that 15-foot clearance between the properties. It looked like for the backyard, just green runs and the amount of space between the two houses. I have a concern as to whether or not, I didn't see any air conditionings on the plans that were at the planning board. air conditioning or a generator. So if you split that property, where you're going to put the air conditioner and generator? And now you got a legal quandary between two separate property owners of where those air conditioning and generators are going to go. And if they're going to go in between that space, it's just too close. And I also know that you sometimes get some neighbors that like to play their music quite loud. You come through and 11-foot space is just not enough space. So I think it's too close. And have to, I'm not sure that, I'm also concerned that of a fire.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that about does it. I just think the space is too close for fire, air conditioning unit. I'd like to see those, more kids, families and kids move into the area. And the plan designs that I saw, I didn't think was conducive more towards kids, is more towards adults.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board? Anyone who would like? Thank you. Please come up.
Thank you. Good evening. My frog. My name is Maybelle Fraser, 1317 Oxford, Berkley. And I also own the property at 1142 Oxford, which kind of is the kitty corner back way of Mrs. Matheson's house. I oppose the variance. We're losing space as it is. You need to have that open space in between. And gradually, the character of our city is losing that. And it's sad to see that. I'm fortunate that I happen to have 3 vacant lots, and I appreciate that. But I also like to see it in other areas of the city, that at least they conform to what it was designed for, being the 15 feet in between and not 11 feet. I think that is too close, and I just came to voice my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, sir, you've already spoken?
No, I just had one question.
No, there'll be no, everybody gets a chance to speak once unless board members have a question. Sir, could you, excuse me, sir? Sir? You can speak when we're done with this portion of the meeting unless you're called up, okay? Thank you. I just want to provide the same courtesy to not only anyone else who would want to speak, but when the board has questions or deliberates, we should try to have one person talking at a time. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. Even though my name is Shirley Hansen, I no longer live in Berkley. I left about 2 years ago to move to a senior living community. Prior to that, I lived in Berkley for 42 years. I sleep in Royal Oak, but I live in Berkley and always will. The lady who owns this property has been, well, we went to high school together. So I have known her and I've known that property for a long time. There is plenty of room at the back of that lot for green space and things like that. And I remember when we moved here in 1943, our houses were so close together that you could almost reach out the bathroom window and hand a cup of sugar to the people that live next door to you. When feasible, I think the 15 feet is a good space. But we also need additional tax space. And we need homes for families. And Mr. Adler has always built, in my opinion, a quality home. I would like to see him be given the variance, and that's close to Rogers Elementary School, so Berkeley's rating with the school district, all of that would enhance and entice good buyers for the property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please step up to the podium. Anyone? Last call. Anyone who would like to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and let's see, looks like we don't have any other written correspondence. Is that correct on this matter? Thank you. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing and turn it back over to the board for discussion. Any of the board members have any comments, questions, or a potential motion? Mr. Allen.
Yes, this particular case puts me in mind of one we looked at almost probably 2 years ago now. And there was a single lot that was divided into 2 lots. I'm trying to remember the name of the street. What street is it? Franklin. Yes, it was on Franklin. And I understand that builders want to build a certain kind of house in a certain size. Well, that doesn't always work. And that 15 feet is in there for a safety measure. Well, at that point in time, we denied the applicant's request to cut down the amount of space between the buildings, and they ended up building them 2 feet off of each new building. They removed 2 feet from that building and quite successfully built 2 nice homes over there.
Okay. Any board members have any additional comments or thoughts?
I agree with Mr. Allen and our second public speaker. And I think it reflects on what I said the last 2 meetings. It's you just, one of the nice things about Berkeley is that's being lost is the space. And if every double lot that's left in this city gets, split up with 2 large homes that provide good tax dollars, it's just, we get this postage, I call it the postage stamp effect. It looks like you've got postage stamp lots with these big houses crammed on it, and that's part of the reason why the 15 feet is there, in my opinion, so.
Mr. Chair.
It also doesn't meet any of the criteria, in my opinion. It's about, the special need is to maximize profit, which I don't think is what any of the criteria are for.
I would like to also add that basically our job here is to determine whether or not the 5 criteria are met very clearly. This is not a decision that we look at and it's in a gray area. It either has to be black or white. And unfortunately, when we look at the proposal, the request, the site plans, and everything, it does not clearly meet all 5, and that's what it has to meet, is 5. It can't meet 3, it has to meet 5. And given that a single house could be constructed on this property and it could work, there does not seem to be a reason to approve a variance for this property. So I would agree with my other fellow commissioners.
Any other board members have any thoughts on Mr. Allen?
Just in doodling on the plans, 2 houses can be put on this property without a variance, not those 2.
Right.
But 2 houses could go on there.
They would have to be more narrow in order to fit without a variance.
Or face the other side street.
Yes.
And that's one of the other things that we have to consider is there another way to do this without providing a variance for the property, or what is the minimum variance that we need? And therefore, I think when we look at this, we do see options And that's one of the factors that we have to look at as well.
In our criteria, the number 2, the need for a variance is not the result of actions of the property owner or previous property owners. I'm having a hard time justifying that one. And then number 3, strict compliance with the ordinance unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose is, again, you can put one house there and have a very nice house, or flip the houses and still not need a variance.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, are you up for a motion?
I am. I'd just like to comment my thoughts as well. And I
Oh,
appreciate
sorry,
everyone
sir.
else's. Just for the record.
Yes.
I do believe that there is some practical difficulty here raised by the applicant based on the location of the building to the south. However, it's not clear to me that another configuration with 2 homes, a different lot configuration for the parcel, couldn't work. In addition, if the variance isn't granted, 1 home could be built on the property. There's 1 home there now. So I'm not convinced that somebody would lose a right that is afforded to them by our ordinance. So I do see that there is some merit in granting a variance, but it's not enough to sway me to vote for one for those reasons, as well as the other reasons brought up by my colleagues. So with that, I am ready for a variance, or a motion, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the matter of application PBA-07-19, that the request for a variance from section 138-527D of the City of Berkeley zoning ordinance to allow proposed 2 single-family houses at 2371 Stanford Road to be located 11 feet apart, parcel DID number 25-17-430-026, zoned R1D, be denied because of a practical difficulty does not exist on the property, as demonstrated by the fact that the 5 conditions to grant a variance have not been met.
I'd support that.
We have motion and support. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Schluchto?
Krug,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes?
Gesund,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. The variance is denied. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry. Okay, the next matter is for a variance request at property at 3638 Buckingham. Ms. Schluchto, do you have a summary for us?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to reference my January 6, 2020 review letter in the application PBA-08-19, 3638 Buckingham. The applicant, Andrew Giles, is on behalf of the property owner, is requesting a 2-foot 6-inch dimensional variance to construct a 2nd-story addition to be located 12 feet 6 inches from the adjacent dwelling at 3622 Buckingham. You can see on the aerial that the property is located in an interior lot. There is a 1st-story addition onto the rear of the property. The applicant is looking to construct a 2nd-story addition that would be in line with the existing 1st-story addition. However, that is located less than the required 15-foot separation distance from the adjacent property at 3622 Buckingham. There is a little bit of background on this property, if I may.
Yes.
So the applicant submitted a building permit back in October related to this addition, and it was noted that the 15-foot required separation distance would need to be met. I spoke with the applicant several times. They revised their plans and noted that the addition would be scooched over to allow for that 15-foot separation distance between the subject property and then the adjacent. After the applicant had submitted that information, we went ahead and processed the building permit, and they were given the green light to go ahead and start construction. During the rough inspection, the building official noted that the applicant had constructed the addition in line with the existing footprint of the building, which was within that 15-foot required separation distance. A stop work order was issued on this property, and then the applicant was given the information that they had to either construct the addition in conformance with the building permit that was issued, or they would be allowed to come before you to seek a variance if they could demonstrate that a practical difficulty could be demonstrated. And like any other variance, the standards of review are located in section 138-606.
Excellent. Any members of the board have any questions for Ms. Schlupto? Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Do we want to read?
We'll do that
Okay.
hearing part, yeah. Is the applicant here? Please, could you step up to the podium?
Hi, Andrew Giles, representing Janice.
That's me.
The homeowner.
Thank you.
So we're requesting a 2.5-foot variance to construct a 8-foot by 12-foot second story on top of an existing story. The house to the south is a 2-story structure that is 12.5 feet from the existing foundations. So in constructing the second floor, it would require scooting the second floor over 2.5 feet, which we're talking 8-foot by 12-foot addition, in essence a closet, on the second floor of an existing structure that was built in 1940. So when we got into the construction of it, the actual south side wall of the house, it jogs several times. So there was a little bit of confusion as to where this 12.5 foot was going to, where, because in the middle, it's 10.5 feet. Towards the back where the addition is, it's 12.5 feet. So then in constructing it, visually looking at the back of this house, and I believe I submitted pictures, if you scooted the whole thing over 2.5 feet, architecturally, it wouldn't look right. It would look awkward, and it wouldn't fit in with everything else in the neighborhood. Everything next door is 2 stories, and it's a full 2 stories over the footprint of the first floor. So we're asking for a 2.5-foot variance to finish that structure so it's a full 2 stories.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. So is what they're saying, am I understanding correctly that the original plans, though, you said you were going to have it jogged over?
We did put the wall there, and it just didn't, it looked weird. So in the mix of it all, the building inspector came over, we talked to him, and we explained to him it didn't look right. And he said, go ahead and pull the variance because he agreed it didn't look right.
I guess my question is, why did you do it then? I mean,
well, we went into it thinking it was going to look fine, but when you physically looked at it from below in the backyard looking up, you see the first floor here, and then you see this 2.5-foot jog. If it was a full footprint of the back of the house, it may have been fine because you could have brought both sides in 2.5 feet. But when you're talking a 12-foot long structure and you're bringing it in 2.5 feet, so you've got this and this, it just didn't look right.
so essentially, it's like 2 small blocks, and the plan you submitted is to have them not directly on top of each other, but one like 2.5 feet off.
Yes, and then we thought we could get away with making it look normal, but it just did not look normal at all.
Okay.
It looked out of place.
Any other members or questions for any members of the board? Okay, thank you. You may have a seat. Thank you. This time I'll open up the public hearing portion of this agenda item. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board regarding this item?
Good evening. John Courtney, 1129 Oxford. I wasn't aware of this. But again, the 15 feet still needs to be occurred. I don't know any of the property owners have submitted anything or a response in regard to the construction that's going on. So I'm just saying that if I was a property owner in the future, if I was to buy a house next door to a property that looks like this, I don't know, what's it gonna look like? I haven't seen the house, I don't know what it looks like, so. But as far as the other property owners in the next door that it's gonna be affecting, maybe I don't know if they submitted anything or not, but.
And if we've received any more public comments, we'll read them here tonight.
So, that's all.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak regarding this matter? Anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, with that, I'll close out the public comment portion. We did receive a written correspondence. Vice Chair McAlpine, could you?
Yes, this correspondence was received on Friday, January 3rd at 9:44 a.m. It states, Aaron, I am writing in response to the variance request for 3638 Buckingham Avenue. I oppose the variance request because it is not in the best interest of the community. The city of Berkeley should require that builders erect buildings that fit the property they purchased. In this specific case, 15 feet is needed to allow 2 driveways. It also impacts the value and the character of the neighboring house. Thank you for submitting my comments to the variance committee on meeting on January 13th, 2020. I will not be able to attend in person. And this was from Elizabeth Tofty, who lives at 3603 Buckingham.
Thank you. Okay, that looks to close out the public comment portion of the request, so I'll turn it back over to the board for discussion. Mr. Allen.
I'm more than a little confused on this one, especially since there are so many jogs in the side of this house. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard there's 10.5 feet, and then towards the rear of the property, it's 12.5 feet from one house to the other. And I'm looking at an aerial view here, trying to figure out where the jog comes in.
The
Is it this?
first floor addition is jogged over 2.5, or no, let's say 2 feet
Okay.
at the rear. So like right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
2 foot
I can see
jog.
there. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
okay, yeah.
That was a later addition that was put on, I'm sure. Okay.
So the part that's underneath the addition in question is the part that's actually not,
Correct.
Not as
So-
close.
That
So
started
the
the
addition, the
whole.
way it's been built is, the second floor that they built is 2.5 feet, or 2 feet from the to the north of,
Gotcha.
from the existing home.
okay. Yeah, it looks like the construction prints that were from 1994 have it apparently lined straight up, but we know that's not the case today. So,
Yep.
okay.
Right, matter of fact, here,
Yeah.
that's the first floor addition jogs back like that.
Okay.
Does that help?
The same, yeah, it does. The same thing applies here that we just talked about a few minutes ago. There's a reason that the minimums are set at what they're set at, and it's much of a problem. Having restored an old house and adding an addition to it at one point in time in my life, I understand that things that pop into your head or things that you scratch down on paper sound really good until you start laying them out, and then they don't look good at all. And I can understand that, but we do want to maintain as much distance between houses as possible, and our ordinance does call for 15 feet, although there is not 15 feet here to use. And I question personally what sense it makes to put the new addition 15 feet from the house next door, while the lower portion that exists sits at 12'6". It's very much a quandary.
Mr. Ular and then Mr. Prue.
Yeah, I'm a lot more sympathetic here because it's the existing footprint thing, and I could have sworn we had one of these in the last few years where and I could be wrong, something similar came up
On Robina.
Wasn't that one allowed?
It was.
Yeah, and
They were going up.
well, that's essentially what's happening here. I mean, you know, the house next, I guess I can't really ask what the neighbors think, right? I mean,
I was going to delve into that with my comments.
I guess they're not here and they haven't objected, and if, you know, they already, and I guess this would be a question to staff. So am I correct that the bump out, what's on the lower part, that was built before the current zoning ordinance existed, the 15 feet?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so, yeah.
Can you hear that?
Haven't we had situations of, were there builders in the past that were told that as long as the footprint is the same and it pre-existed the ordinance, you're allowed to do it without a variance? Because I could have sworn I
think you're right.
I can't comment on what was done before. I don't know.
I do recall something very similar, and maybe it was, I thought we voted on it, but the theory was they're not going out any further than they're already going out. They're not asking to go past that, they're just asking to go up. And given that, I think we said it's already pre-existing, kind of grandfathered,
I thought they might have been
non-conforming already.
I thought they might have been told that they didn't need the variance as long as they did that, but
No.
We're trying to answer your question. The board members are.
yeah,
But I think if we remember it, then it must have come here.
I have an answer. I did.
So
I
that's.
don't want to speculate, so if we're not sure.
No, but I mean, I guess I would have not known about something like this had it not been here, because I'm just not up on every building plan, you know, that's submitted, so.
Do any members of staff have any comment or
Dennis
provide an
wants to-
answer?
Dennis wants
Yeah,
to say
I
something.
don't have the reference on me, but reviewed this before the meeting. We have a law on the books that if they are not expanding outside of the footprint, that it can be the director and the building official can act as the zoning board of appeals and approve it administratively. If they disagree or the applicant does not like the answer, then it can come before the ZBA. So I think in the past, those two individuals were acting as the ZBA in cases similar to this.
You know, I can say I remember seeing that in the ordinance, so thank you for refreshing our memory.
When I first
Is this relative to this question?
Yes,
Because I know
yes.
Mr. Crew wants to talk to
Say
you. Okay,
something.
no, go ahead.
When the first time I sat on the ZBA, when it was initially created in the 80s, what Ms. McAlpin referenced was what we chose as our Bible, so to speak, that if the footprint of the structure remained the same, and they were either going out at the same distance or up, that the variance was, well, it could be done administratively, as Councilman Hennon said.
Okay.
I guess I have a follow-up question based on what Councilman and said, did that happen? Did you guys disagree, or did you even talk in that fashion, or?
We did discuss this, and based on Section 138-154 about a non-conforming structure, that any addition would then have to conform to the ordinance, that's where we differed. So the building official and I did not agree that this fell into an administrative approval.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, and on this particular one, I'm looking at both the house to the south and this home. The original portion of the home is only 10 and a half feet apart. And so they're 12 and a half feet apart. I see absolutely no issue whatsoever of extending that up.
I don't either. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it. I mean, and I don't know if someone could explain this comment to me, because I don't understand that either, the email. The thing with the driveway?
It seemed like it was confused with what we just voted on.
I had that, when I read it, I had that exact same.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then the address is right by.
Yeah, the location of the resident did not match the comment that they made. So obviously we put it in the record, and we need to take that into consideration.
I guess we can each member can decide how much weight we want to give it. Ms. Ward?
I, as we all did, I'm sure, took a drive-by and took a look and kind of looked at the property and looked at the property next door. I would think that if the residents at 3622, which is the property directly south of this property, were concerned that they would have been here and that they would have raised an issue. Elizabeth Toffley, she lives 2 houses down and across the street, because she's on the other side of the street. And certainly safety is a key ingredient for any community. But in my opinion, she has no oar in the water on this one, because she doesn't live directly next door. She doesn't even live directly across the street. She's 2 doors down and across the street. So again, with the rest of the board, I question this, but I would think that if the neighbor who lives directly south of this property, which would be 3622, had a problem, that they would have been here this evening.
I would think that if the direct neighbors had a problem with this, being that it's already under construction and was stopped, I would think they would have raised hell that this was going on.
And we've had situations where we've said, sorry,
Yes.
you need to take it all down.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that has.
So the fact that construction has already started has no real basis on our decision.
Excellent point.
And if they truly were against it, they could have done their due diligence research and found that
Yeah.
we have made those decisions. And they could have had that as the leg to stand on, and obviously they're not here.
Mr. Allen?
Call your attention to the sketch
Yes.
as it relates to the note that we got. The drive on the subject property here is on the north or left-hand side. The drive, the house south of that is on the south side.
South side, yes.
There's not a problem with 2 driveways clashing there.
Yeah, but the problem is still like, if I want to do this, the problem is how to construct a motion and how to fit into the criteria, so.
I've got some thoughts on that.
Okay, well, I'm all ears.
Thank you.
Speak away.
And just looking at the criteria, so it's my opinion that the unique circumstances of the physical conditions of the property is A, the location of this house, but also B, the configuration of this property relative to the property to the south. I don't believe it's not clear to me from any information we've seen that the owners or previous owners of the subject property had any impact or bearing on where the owners of the property to the south were going to put their house. And the ordinance, at least under today's standards, is very clear that you can go within 5 feet of that side property line. So I think there is a unique circumstance in that with the historical conditions here. I think number two, and I talked about this in number one, it's not a result of the actions of the subject property, but rather a potential result of the actions of previous property owners. In theory, if all houses were centered on properties and they're all 15 feet apart, we wouldn't have to worry about this at all, but people have flexibility. Correct. I think in this situation, the property at 3638 is being denied perhaps a right to simply add on to their house, not even beyond the existing footprint.
It is following the footprint.
Which I think ties into number 5, at least would not adversely impact the area. Number 3, I also talked about that, strict compliance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property. Look, everybody wants more. We've seen plenty of cases where people want perhaps a lot or as much as possible on a little. I don't see that here, but they're working within the existing footprint as opposed to having a new one. I think they're doing everything they can to continue reasonable use of the property, and I believe this would be the minimum variance. It's not like they're asking to go closer to the what we would think would be the most affected property, the one to the south. Yeah.
It's already non-conforming, and they're not making the non-conforming any more non-conforming than it already was.
Not at least in regards to setback.
Right.
And I also concur with the board. I mean, I would like to hear what I believe potentially would be the most affected property to the south. They received a postcard, well, they were sent a postcard. There's a sign out on the property that says there's going to be a public hearing. They're not here. Sure, I'd like to hear from them, as we all would. I also think that due to the scope of the variance and the massing of the variance, perhaps they chose not to come out because it wasn't that large of a request. I don't think it's a big request. So for all those, I hope I've conveyed the fact that I would be open to granting this variance if a motion were granted. Motion were entertained.
Presented, yeah.
Yes. So I'll accept if someone's ready to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the matter of application PBA 0819, that the request for the variance from section 138-527D of the City of Berkeley zoning ordinance to allow proposed second-story addition at 3638 Buckingham to be located 12 feet 6 inches from the adjacent dwelling at 3622 Buckingham, parcel ID 25-07-451-005, zoned R1D, be approved because it does meet the practical difficulty, and those things do exist on the property as demonstrated by what we've reviewed tonight.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, Ms. Schluchto.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Euler?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Gesund?
Yes.
Krug?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes. Congratulations, you've received your variance. Thank you for your time tonight.
And you don't have to take down what you've already built.
Thanks, everybody.
And the next item on our agenda is other business. Ms. Schluchto, is there any other business?
Not tonight.
I do have a question. Any update on the Oakland County staff training for the zoning board?
Yes, I have it
One-stop
right
shop.
here. That was going to be something I was going to ask everybody if they've received the email, if anybody would be interested. It is being held Wednesday, January 29th, 2019, 2020. They made a mistake. From 6 to 9 p.m. It will be held at the L. Brooks Patterson Building in Waterford.
Is that something the
We've
city
gotten-
would pay for?
Absolutely. We have received interest from Board Member Allen, Board Member Krug, and Board Member Gesund.
Excellent. And I'll be there
Yeah,
too as part of
Calpine.
the...
I will as well. I was waiting for a meeting date. Does not conflict.
Okay. So we have-
And I would like to add my name to the list, too.
I'll go.
Well, looks like we're going to have a quorum there.
If we have any
No
business,
discussing.
Conduct any business. I'll be there as a member of City of Troy, so maybe we can all get together and trade best practices. Yes. Yeah. We did that last time, actually.
Yes, we
We
did.
had this. Last time was very good, so I think you'll all be very entertained.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Aaron.
Last time it wasn't Pontiac, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Waterford?
no, this is
The county building.
It's across the street.
straight
Oh, so,
from the
okay.
county building.
It's across Telegraph.
Hey, you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there.
That's right. Yeah, they had double the amount of people they thought they were going to have. It was very well attended. Close to 100, yeah. All right. Liaison report, Councilmember Hennon.
Yes, our marijuana ordinances are complete. We are just finalizing the application criteria, the scoring criteria before we start opening up applications, and we will likely finish that in a special meeting this month. The first reading of mandatory attendance and training requirements was passed, and then if the second reading passes, that will go into effect in July. That's the start of the fiscal year, start of when the board member terms start. And then finally, maybe an item for discussion. I'm working on my Master Citizen Planner credentials, and I've completed the coursework and passed the exam. All that's left for me to do now is to make a 20-minute presentation in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the likely topic would be how to make legally defensible decisions. So I just wanted to gauge sentiment if that would be acceptable to this board to give that presentation, and if you would prefer it on a night such as this, when you already have cases and you're coming in, or one of the months where there isn't a case otherwise, and that would be the only business or some of the only business.
Yeah, well, I can say that I've participated in that. It's an excellent course, so A, congratulations, and B, I mean, it's awesome to have a council liaison that takes a very active interest in what we do here. So I appreciate it. Any comments from the board on council members' requests?
I'd love to see his presentation.
I guess I'd rather do it on a regular meeting night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Regular meeting? Regular?
Yep.
I would rather do it on a regular, too. Yeah. Okay with the regular?
I'm fine either way. I'll be here.
All right, well, you've got a concurring vote of yes.
Yes.
And presume you'll just work that out with staff then.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
And that's all I had tonight.
Thank you. Okay. I'll open up the floor to public comments. There is no one here. So I'll close the public comment period and I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks everybody for attending.
All right.